Welcome back to the Pilates Exchange, everyone. I am your host, Hannah Teutcher. This is the podcast where we talk about everything from Pilates teaching to owning a studio and everything in between. Art of teaching. It doesn't even have to be just Pilates, but all the different movement stuff. Today, I am doing a solo episode, and we are specifically talking about a couple conversations that I've been recently having with some of my peers about opening their own Pilates studios, either a fitness studio, yoga studio, Pilates studio. Like we know a lot of people from different countries, and the conversations are generally revolving around a couple different things. And what we're looking at is that people are with the conversations that I'm having is the big question is, how do you know it's the right decision? Like how do you know? Like everyone's looking for that answer of like, okay, yes, let's do it. And that's generally why they come in contact with me, because they would like that, okay, yes, it's a great idea. Um, and the answer is a little bit more nuanced than yes, do it. And for me, like I didn't know. Like I talk about this before. I did a lot of gut reaction stuff, but I also have spent a lot of the time in the industry before I decided to open up my own studio. So how do you know how did I know it's the right decision? Well, I didn't know in the beginning. I just know that I knew that I could make it work. And that's the thing, is that nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. And that's like the first huge lesson. We never actually know. You could do your research, you could plan, you can forecast, and things can come in between all of the best decisions and the best planning. I know several people that opened a studio and then the following week or so, month or so, couple of months or so, then they got shut down because of COVID, or another a colleague of ours had a studio in the Ukraine, and then that got closed because of war. There's things that you will never be able to plan. And sometimes it's just moments that you simply decide, and you live in the gray, you live in this uncertainty, because entrepreneurship is never a certain thing. Like I wish it was. I mean, it'd make our stress levels much lower if it was something that we knew for certain. But unfortunately, that's not it. It's about leaning into the gray, making decisions with the information, the best information that you have at that moment. Your gut instinct, your like what your belly feels is valuable, but it can also lie. Like you can really talk yourself in or out of decisions. You see this beautiful, like for example, if you've been looking around and you see a beautiful space and you're like, oh, yes, I see myself in here and I love it. But if you don't do your due diligence of figuring out, can the market hold a Pilates studio or fitness studio or whatever you're doing, um, then you're just lying to yourself, kinda. You know, you could talk yourself into a whole lot of things. You could also talk yourself out of things because it's scary. You know, um, so there is the intuition of kind of realizing where things are going. Um, Having a gut feeling is good. We do want to pay attention to them. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's excitement. I think that even ego plays a part in this gut feeling. And the hardest part is learning the difference between those different things like ego, fear, excitement, um, and trying to suss out what is then a good decision. What's your brain saying? What do the numbers say? Because, like, your feelings, your gut should have a seat at the table, but it shouldn't be driving the decision making. It should be there to support you, so that if you're going in two different ways, your gut says one way and your brain says to do something else, then it's probably not the right way, right? I Something that I've been talking a lot with these peers that I've had these conversations with is that know your numbers. Numbers tell stories, and business isn't built on hope. It's built on numbers. What is this business actually going to cost you? What is your break even point? How long is it going to take you to get to your break even point? What's your margin? What's your profit margin that you're aiming for? Like, please don't price your classes on whatever, the neighbor down the street is doing, because you really don't know inside of what's happening in their business. They could have like no profit margins or very slim ones. So please do not do that. That doesn't make sense. But thinking about when you are building out your business plan, like, what is your cash flow going to need to be? What's the downside of having a studio? For me, the downside is you think you're going to have time, and you don't. Like, I'm just, I thought I was going to be different and have better boundaries and all the things, but it is just not the case. Oh my gosh, it's taken me years to be able to get some of my time back through better operations and stuff. So I know that there's probably other Pilates podcasts that are out there that are saying, yes, I only work a couple hours a week and whatever. Like, I'm not at that place. I'm working towards that place, but I don't think I'll ever get there. I do love teaching. I love business in general. I love every aspect of this crazy business that we're in. So it is a passion of mine, and I like being inside of it. That being said, still, it is an enormous amount of work. Like, whatever you think you're going to be spending time in, double it, because it is more than you think. So there's that part of like just being realistic of, do you have the capacity to put those extra hours in? If you have, maybe you have help at home, or someone, if you have kids or dogs or whatever it is, like, make sure that that support team is really going to have your back, especially in the beginning part of things, beginning part of opening your studio. Decisions are data. Like, they create the data. The data isn't the decision. You have to be able to make decisions. Good decisions equal good outcome, right? Like, you think that that's the way it was going to go. Like, you make a good decision, you're going to have a good outcome, and everything is going to be peachy. But sometimes it's not. Like, sometimes you make a good decision based on all the information you have, and it's a bad outcome. It's not the one that you wanted. So you need to circle back and see what happened. Same is the other way around. You make sort of a bad decision, and you end up with a kind of good outcome. And that happens sometimes. Like why? I don't know. It just it just is. And so, like, you can't judge everything that you're doing. Like, what is the result? You have to judge, like, given what you knew at that time, did you make a thoughtful decision? Then you need to go back and quickly say, okay, how can I improve my whole process? What decisions would I make better? What would I make differently based on the information that you are learning? Because you will have to make a lot of decisions, and they have to go relatively fast because you need to get things rolling and running. We've talked about this before, that you need to, sometimes I drive my team crazy about this, but like, it's all data. You make a decision, we learn from it, we do the best we can within the parameters that we have, and then we circle back and we make it better. Because I don't think that for me, the way that I run my business is, yes, I want things to be as good as they can be, but waiting for perfect and nothing gets done. Unfortunately, I know several people that could have been great studio owners, but they're trapped in this decision making circle where nothing, they need more information before they actually make the decision, where sometimes you just got to jump in with the best of your ability, make the decision, learn from it, and go on. Because things are going to go wrong. Like, that is life. Oh my gosh, like, I don't even know how many times I've made seriously wrong decisions. I've wasted money, I've wasted time, I've wasted resources. And you go on with it. Like, everything from, I've made bad software decisions, pricing decisions. I've hired the wrong people. I've not correctly like trained the people that I hired and had to let people go. I've put wrong classes, I put bad schedules on, I've done bad marketing. And maybe not bad, it just wasn't appropriate. I learned from it. I want to thank Offering Tree for sponsoring this podcast. Running a Pilates business means juggling scheduling, payments, marketing, and more, and Offering Tree gets it. They've built an all in one platform for Pilates professionals handling scheduling, payments, marketing, your website, and so much more. What I love is they're not just software, they also provide community and educational resources, supporting you every step of the way. Plus, there are no annual commitments or pushy sales tactics. For our listeners, get 50% off your first 3 months or 15% off the year at offeringtree.com/ Pilates Exchange. That's offeringtree.com/ Pilates Exchange. Spend less time on admin and more time on teaching. Again, offeringtree.com/ Pilates Exchange. You don't become a better studio owner by avoiding mistakes. You become better by learning faster. And that is what is hard, right? Like that's hard. You got to be humble enough to make the decision and learn from it. And decision fatigue, I think that's it. Decision fatigue is real. It is so hard. Like sometimes we get home from work and Chris asks me like, "What do you want for dinner?" And I'm like, I cannot make a single decision more. I don't know. I just don't care. Like just put something in front of me. Like I don't know. And that's something that we're not talking about as studio owners. And it's also you could feel this also as a teacher. You don't have to be a studio owner for this. Like you're making all these minute decisions during a class and to help the people that are in front of you. But then you multiply that in running the studio, you're making multiple decisions all the time about this client or that client, or do I return money? Do I cancel their subscription? Do I allow an extension on this package? Do I change my marketing? Do I do more, like whatever it is? Like there's so many decisions, hundreds of things every week. Some of them are tiny, like just inconsequential things. And then some of them are really life changing. And it is absolutely exhausting. It really is. Like I don't want this to be the podcast where, Pilates Exchange to over talk. Oh, everything is great. No, it's hard. Like this is why we do this stuff. This is why we do this podcast is we talk about the hard things. To ease the decision fatigue, you have to have systems. And we've talked about this on multiple episodes. Systems help you ease that decision fatigue because then you have just a set way of doing things, right? That you try to keep through that as much as possible. You keep your at least the values, like what are you working towards? What are the values that are important to you that helps reduce the fatigue of the decisions, right? The values, like the values that you hold, help you decide. Like if you're unsure, you go back to your values. Is this something that I believe my studio should stand on? Great. Does it align with your values? Yes. Perfect. Keep going. No, then forget it, And the framework then makes everything a little bit easier. That would be if you don't have a big, handbook of operations, at least go through that, your values, and then that will ease some of the discomfort. So deciding on a studio, and knowing, is this the right one for me? Sometimes the biggest mistake isn't making the wrong decision. It's just making no decision at all. It's waiting. It's overthinking. It's not thinking about it. It's trying to eliminate every risk. But at some point, like action creates clarity. And so if you create the action, whether you want to do it or not do it, it's still an action. So create the action. And that I think is important. An action of deciding against having a studio for all the different reasons that I just talked about is also great. That is all. There's nothing bad about deciding that studio ownership is not for you. That is okay. That is like, and deciding that you want it, great. Then do it. Like one of my most mature teachers and on my team, he said he just never wanted a studio. He sees how all the studio owners that he's worked for are always running around and working and working and working. And he decided that that's not what he wanted to do. He just wanted to concentrate on the teaching. And that is a totally valid and beautiful decision. So, what I'm saying is the cost of not deciding. You could decide to have the studio based on the information, the numbers that you have, or decide not to have the studio, and both are great. But the action is the clarity. And I think people ask most, like, what's the biggest difference about people who dream about open the studio and the people who actually do it? I don't think that difference is confidence. I don't think it's money. Um, I think it's the people, the entrepreneurs that learn to make decisions without needing guarantees, because guarantees just don't exist. What does exist is preparation, thoughtful decision making, learning from your mistakes, continuing to move forward, like all of those. That is what you need to be able to do. Um, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest point of this episode, that successful studio owners will make the decisions and learn from them, and the ones that either decide not to have the studio will not make those decisions, or are people that cannot quickly make decisions. I guess that would be my biggest takeaway. I hope that makes sense. I am getting more and more questions in our emails and inboxes about studio ownership. I'd love to talk deeper about this. So let me know, what is the biggest struggle that you have right now with deciding whether to have or not have a studio, or is there a different way that we should take our episodes going forward? Would you like more teaching content? In any case, you help us by listening, and you also help us by rating this podcast and sharing it with someone that may need to hear about all this. I thank you for helping us spread the word. It really does a lot for us. Thank you again, and we are wishing you a wonderful, happy teaching week, and we'll see you next week on the Pilates Exchange.